Put in just now. Angel. Muted. I think it's probably Kakilang. Anyway, all coming in already, right? Justin, you want to test or anything? Justin.
She can't hear.
Yeah, we will be starting soon, in around like 5 minutes time. So please wait for a while for the rest to come in. Hi everyone, we'll be starting in around 5 minutes time. Please wait for a while. Thank you for your patience.
Hey, Peter and Leong. Hey, is it raining in KL?
Today was
Now
very
it's
sunny.
Oh, okay. It's
After this session, we're planning
This
to go
morning.
party.
it's next week. Next week going over. I worry flood again.
The days
Well,
you're here, don't worry, we will not be flooded.
I'm not
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure. I came 2 times flood. I don't know. Am I the one who brought the water into KL or not?
Water as in
Don't worry.
dollar sign soy is it?
I don't know. I just worry that because I don't bring umbrella when I go out. Anyway, this is being recorded. I think probably they have to edit later.
Don't worry, we will edit later.
Yeah. More people coming. Hello, Charles. How are you?
Hello, Paddy. Yeah, I'm still standing in my company.
Oh, serious?
Okay, but this one will be better because actually there will be new team members joining.
Great. Yeah, I think Jesse want us to keep quiet already.
Yeah, still got 2 more minutes. So we will start in around 8:05. Okay. Okay, good evening, everyone. Thank you for your patience. So we are going to start the event today. And we are going to talk about gearing up for growth, starting business in Malaysia. Okay, so I'm Jaslyn, the moderator for today. And today we are very honored to have my colleague Patty, who is a managing partner of Western Consulting, and also our 2 advisors at Malaysia, Leong, as well as Peter, to actually join us today to share some insights. Okay. So, this event is also organized by Western Consulting and Esprenia, while we also have event partners who are actually supporting this event, IEPS and Tech Nation. We are very happy for that. Okay. Okay, so just some housekeeping rule before we start. We thank you in advance to do that. Please mute your audio and turn off your video until the open discussion session. That's where you can actually unmute yourself and then ask any question, or also feel free to post any question at the chat box, or you can actually ask personally, like I mentioned earlier. Okay, so you can share with your peers who will benefit from this session. For this link is up, and then let's get started. Okay. So today's format is a little bit different. If you actually join us for other session, that's where we will actually share some facts and some questions. We'll ask the speakers to actually voice out their opinion on some of the facts regarding starting business in Malaysia. Okay. So just some overview of Malaysia, some numbers that actually help our attendees who may not be actually in this region to get to know more about this nation. Okay. So these are some of the facts where the real GDP growth in the recent year 2021 and 2020. So that's the amount of growth, and then you have the inflation rate that is actually increase, and then we have unemployment rate and then population size, okay, at 32.7 million. Okay, so we have the first topic today, but before we begin, we would like to actually ask the speakers to actually give an introduction about themselves. Okay, so maybe we can start off with Paddy to give an introduction of yourself, and then we'll move on from there.
Yeah, hi, thanks. Okay, I'm Paddy Tan, Singaporean. based in Singapore, serial entrepreneur. I buy, sell, restructure, and scale companies. And I've been now spending a bit more time with Blackstone Consulting, partly is because of the pandemic, and the growth of the company has been tremendous. So I'm actually down in Blackstone Consulting as one of the managing partner. I focus a lot in strategy and helping companies from startups to SME to listed companies to help them to scale. My forte is mainly in coming up with strategies and then helping them to execute in their scaling. It can be within the country itself. It can be in moving into different verticals, moving into different industry, or even to scale them out of the country into another country, but all within Southeast Asia. So strategy and execution is mainly my specialties. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Peter. So let me probably just give a very quick introduction. I'm actually based in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia here. And I've spent about more than 20 years in the telco business. Was working with the probably the top 2 telco in Malaysia. And currently, I'm also running a IT development company. We are residing in India, Malaysia, and Singapore, all our customers. And now I've just recently joined as an advisory role in Blackstone Consulting. Leon, over to you.
Hey, hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Leon. I'm actually from KL. So I'm also in the IT space. Basically, my key role is actually in business development. That's my core strength. And basically, I've experience doing private sector businesses and also public sector. I'm quite well experienced in dealing with the government. And currently, I also is quite involved in 2 NGOs. They're basically Chamber of Commerce. And I also now is one of the advisors under Blackstone. So my key skills is actually to help businesses, grow their businesses. And today we're going to talk about something that could benefit everyone. Thank you.
So thanks for the introduction. Okay, so the first question that we are going to discuss today is some facts on whether do you agree with some of the opinion that we have regarding doing business in Malaysia. Okay, so this is some of the opinions that we actually gather in the midst of doing consultancy work for many of the various company. So that's where we talk about like business structure in Malaysia, right? From what we heard, I'm actually Singaporean. Paddy is actually Singaporean, so we actually do some business in Malaysia, and based on our sort of like experience doing that, right? So these are some of the summary. Okay, so we know that in Malaysia, there are actually quite a diverse kind of like startup ecosystem, and there are a lot of like large family conglomerates, and then international business, things like that. But some of the challenges that we actually heard would be things like during the process of like setting up business here and there, there are some feedback that we actually gotten on like inefficient law enforcement, stuff like that. So maybe I can open up to the floor to actually let the speakers actually voice out some of the view on like doing business in Malaysia. What are some of the things that we should think of in terms of like benefits, and then some of the things that we should think of in terms of like challenges. Maybe you can start off with like Peter.
Sure, Jocelyn. So maybe I start off with the business structure first. So you rightfully pointed out that the type of organizations, you have a large family conglomerates, you have SMEs, and there's one major one as well, which is the micro SME. These guys would probably have a small setup at the corner of the street and things like that. Can give a bit of a flavor of the background in the country. I used to run close to about 10,000 retail stores in the country. So these are the mom and pop shops type, where its contribute is a huge number of revenue generator for the country as well. So they predominantly sell anything and everything you see in the street and things like that. So they are very diverse. Of course, you have the major cities which the major corporations are in. You got industrial parks, you got guys who are in manufacturing, and of course, you also have all those large organizations, the multinationals who are in Cyberjaya, who are very focused around IT development stuff, regional organizations like DHL, Dell, and things like that. These are the huge guys. So it has a very diverse business around the country. Majority, yes, it sits around between the Klang Valley, we call it, between Kuala Lumpur and Selangor. And then you have the Johor Bahru side, and then of course you have the Penang side as well. Now, the other sectors that you look at it is from the East Coast, which is Kelantan and Terengganu. Slightly different landscape, very different type of segmentation from the consumer and even from the business sector. And then of course we have our friends across our family, I won't call them friends, call them family, across Sabah Sarawak, which is a very, very diverse culture as well. Now the landscape is huge. If you look at from a distribution standpoint, it's going to be fairly large to cover if you look at the footprint of Malaysia. So again, then if you look at all the necessary things that you require, will be infrastructure is needed for moving goods around the country, services, different type of segment, and of course, last but not least, the country is very diverse in culture. So we got three major groups of race, which is the Malay, the Chinese, and the Indian. So again, segmentation is very, very important, and where you are and things like that.
How about Leong?
Yeah, maybe to add to what Peter has mentioned, I think basically I just want to touch a bit on the what you call it, when the reasons why Malaysia is pretty good as a place to do business. So in the region, if you look at the Southeast Asia map, Malaysia is quite well placed as the center of Southeast Asia. If you look at the map, and it's quite stable, you don't have earthquakes here in Malaysia. Even there's, of course, there's flood line. People complain about the flood in recent days. Probably Paddy has some experience. But other than that, you don't have any major disruption. And so far, until now, in terms of war and all this, we're quite safe, I would say. And more importantly, even though you may have heard about a lot of the challenges in the politics scenes, but generally speaking, in the business sector, right, business is as usual. There is stability there, and the government is very pro-business, no doubt. And then you have a workforce that are quite well educated. So English language is basically the common language, and most of the workforce, they are especially today, they have all the required skills to operate a business. So Malaysia is also, I think, with the help of MDEC and all, we were quite a good place to actually run BPOs, which was actually one of the key business drivers for MDEC. MDEC is actually the Malaysia Digital Economy Corporation. Of course, now there's a lot of focus in startups. Then you have affordable, high quality living. You can still get high quality living as compared to other places like maybe Singapore. Just as a guide, to hire probably a fresh grad in Malaysia will only cost you maybe 3,000 over ringgit Malaysian rate, but a fresh grad in Singapore easily can cost you more than 3,000 Sing dollars. So basically, you get a discount here, when you employ a local here. That's like a 70% discount. if you look at the cost of managing your workforce, then of course the locals here definitely will complain about the rising cost of doing business, etc. But if you look at the cost of doing business relatively, right, it could still be affordable. And then you have the infrastructure. The Malaysian government has been working very hard to build, like just now Peter mentioned, industrial parks and all. Almost every state in Malaysia, they would have industrial parks. And the road structures and all those, no doubt there are a lot of potholes here and there, but they are continuously upgrading it. And then I think they have been working very hard on the MRT. The what do you call it? This connectivity is all there, and Malaysia has a lot of access to public transport and all. No doubt, sometimes the timeliness may not be there, but other than that, generally speaking, right, in the major cities, the connectivity is all there. So doing business here, you need all this connectivity, and you have good access to, if you want to set up businesses here, we have lots of pools of company secretary, the experts, the lawyers, and all those who are well versed in the Malaysian laws and regulation. And if you just Google, there are tons of them, and you can, nowadays you can check out their reviews, and basically there are a lot of them, especially in Klang Valley and all. You can get access to them, and most of them you can actually get on a call with them to understand the situation here much better. Now today you can also go on a Zoom call for the early consultation. They don't charge normally, so that's a plus point. I think these are the few areas that you can actually look into when you come into Malaysia. Okay, over to you, Jocelyn.
Yeah, interesting point. Like
Right.
for example, Blackstone Consulting, right? We sort of like, because of pandemic, we actually closed our office in Malaysia like a few years back.
Right.
Due to 2 years back. So recently we actually went in, sort of like established like Blackstone Consulting hub in Malaysia. I think one thing that we actually observed, in the past month we have been traveling a lot to like Malaysia, almost like every alternate week. Like next week we are actually flying there.
Right.
So one thing I actually observed is like connectivity and relationship. Okay, definitely help a lot when it comes to like doing business in Malaysia. I think this is something that is pretty unique of Malaysia. Although I'm actually a half Malaysian, right? But of course, as a half Malaysian, I may not do business when I was like younger in Malaysia. Right? So I think that's something very interesting. So I'm not sure, Paddy, do you have anything to actually add on? Based on our what we have been doing. Yeah.
I'm a pure Singaporean. Okay. Okay, so I look at it this way. One of the biggest reasons why we went back to Malaysia is, I think, as any other businesses, there's you go to where opportunities are. If you would ask me, hey, why not you compare between Singapore and Malaysia? There's always a lot of comparison. This has ongoing for decades. Is Malaysia better? Is Singapore better? But I think is that the interesting thing about Malaysia side is that but it's not really to praise Malaysians or whatever. I think for any other businesses this where you go for the opportunities. I think partly is because of when the change of governments for the past few years, it does create a fair bit of concern for foreign investor to go in. I think this is an undisputed fact. But because of this, it also means that those who dare to take the advantage or take the risk, you will probably benefit a fair bit more when if the policies or if the governments or or if the business climates are improved. I think for me, as a business person, I see it this way. For us as a consultants, basically what we are doing is that we want to go to places where companies needs help. Individuals, business owner needs help, but it is also at the same time because of such kind of opportunity that presented itself, resulted in people like us who can actually take advantage of from a very strategic point of view. Like what Peter and Leong mentioned is that all the good things about Malaysia side, but the truth to be told is that while internally under Malaysians will probably understand this, but what's outside of Malaysia is probably be painted a bit different. I think this is also where the opportunity comes in. We go in, we are there slightly earlier, where others don't dare to take the risk. We enter, we take the risk. When you say take the risk, it simply means that there will always be some instability. After pandemic, what's the directions? How businesses can be improved? How the economy going to be improved and all this. I think this is also where opportunities are, because when the economy is good, opportunities may be plenty, but when the economy are not good, this is also where you can create your own opportunity. So therefore, I feel that for Malaysia as a country itself, from north, south, east, west, you literally have everything. You have the people, you have the land, you have the fruits, the population to cover. You have sea in literally everywhere, anywhere, except the part that connected to Thailand. I think the opportunity is a lot. It's just a matter of whether will you be there earlier, or will you wait until when the when the whole wave start to ride, then you come in. I think this is where the part that I saw why we wanted to enter into Malaysia much earlier. Thanks.
All right, thanks. So thanks for the insights. I think very interesting. So we are going to the second topic, which is the common collaboration approach that we actually see, in Malaysia. Okay, so these are some of the different international market entry strategies. So just want to hear from the speakers here today, which is actually more common, and then, when will we actually sort of like adopt that strategy when it comes to entering into Malaysia? All right, so it's open up to the floor. Any of the speakers can actually
maybe I come in first. Or I come in as a Singaporean first. I think one of the things that we have to understand is that do not have a certain expectations of okay, especially if you are coming from Singapore, do not have a certain expectation that the world evolves around you. Why? Because I think the thing is that in Singapore, to be honest, there are certain things that are really efficient, and it's scarily efficient. We are very effective. Like for example, opening a branch, opening a bank. Okay, opening a bank account. I think it can be quite a shock to a lot of people from Singapore if you were to open a bank account in Malaysia. Partly is because I think the thing is that like in Malaysia, they have their own system, they have their own methods. I think it will face a lot of challenges if you were to use Singapore as a benchmark for everything, not just against Malaysia, against Thailand, against anywhere in the world. Because I think as a country, by and large, Singapore are efficient in a certain way, but not necessarily efficient in everything. So I think one of the things that I have to understand is that when you enter into Malaysia, the very first thing is that do not use that benchmark, because otherwise you will probably find a lot of things that is actually not up to your standard. And this is also one of the challenges that lots of people will always find very difficult to work with Singaporeans. Because every now and then Singaporeans love to do it, say, oh, in Singapore, we are like that. In Singapore, we are like that. After a while, your potential partners or potential client will just say, we always challenge, it's like, okay, that's simple, go back to Malaysia. I think this is also one of the biggest challenge. Whether are you going to work on a joint venture, distributions, franchise, whatever. I think one of the things that I learned is that don't use the Singapore benchmark in anywhere, everywhere. Even though we may be first in a lot of things, but if there's a first in everything, there should be a second in other things. So it doesn't mean that we should set the benchmark there. So I think one of the things that we will probably have to do on the market entry strategy is not to use Singapore as a benchmark in everything. Otherwise, any of these strategies will probably not work out. Thanks.
Yeah, being open-minded. So maybe you can hear from Peter or Leong. What do you think actually if you are at the other end?
Okay, Peter, you want to go first?
No, it's okay. Don't worry. Go ahead.
Yeah, okay. Just to add on to what Patty has said, frankly speaking, doing business in Malaysia revolves very much on who you know. So I think as a good approach, it's very good to actually find a local party who can actually share the same values as you have, and because generally speaking, Malaysians are also looking out for opportunities. The business community are also looking out for opportunities. So when the overseas companies, when they come to Malaysia, normally they would seek out this kind of opportunities. So if you find good parties to work with, generally speaking, they will help you and they will assist you to move things at a much faster rate. I think that is also very important, even as Malaysian companies, when they go overseas, whether be it go to Singapore or go to Indonesia, for the matter, right? Or even go to Philippines or Thailand. If you're totally fresh there, you don't know where to start. It's quite difficult. But if you can, if somebody refers you to someone or someone who can actually get that thing done, you know, it really helps a lot. So coming into Malaysia, no doubt you can Google all these parties and you can speak to them. If you know somebody who can recommend somebody and somebody have a chat with them and see how it works, test them out, you know, like just now you mentioned about opening bank account, all these things, right? The right party could actually lead you to do those things at a much faster rate. I believe so. And generally speaking, Malaysians are quite friendly. Of course, there are some who are quite cocky, you know. But other than that, we are quite open-minded, you know. Selling too much of it for Malaysia. Okay, what do you, Peter?
I think, yeah, thanks, Leong. I think you are right. Knowing what to do and how to do is very essential when you reach to any country, and not only about Malaysia. So there are things that how the local people do things and things like. I can tell you frankly, the people in KL, like myself and Leong, we're in one of the key cities. Okay, and imagine myself and Leong going to the East Coast, and we're going to the Sabah Sarawak, which is the deeper of the jungle of the country and things like that. Each of the people will have a different way of doing things, culturally, and they have their own style as well. Now, you can imagine that you know their style and things like that. I think you'll blend in very fast. You will be able to be part of their culture as well and things like that. So if I go to the East Coast, guys, I'm not going to look for Chinese food. I'm going to go with all their local flavors in the East Coast, which all the time I can't even find it here in the cities. So you got to learn to be like them. You got to learn to know how to deal with business. And the last thing is actually the people. The people is the one who brings you the market entry into a strategy. If I can link it back to these things that we're talking about, distribution, joint venture, franchising, M&A, and stuff like that. It depends on which party that you're working with. They could be strong in certain areas. Okay, franchising, I can tell you, between the Chinese community and the Malay community. Okay, Leong, maybe you can add on. I have seen so many of them, of these two group of people who's going into franchise business, from the small kiosk all the way to a mega store. Give you one example is Mr. DIY. I think Mr. DIY, who just went public, is a real kind of a franchise model that they're doing. They have now probably about 800 stores. The way that they're going and the momentum that they're going with 2 more other brands, they'll probably go to 2,000 stores. That's the pace of the thing that they're going. And they're every corner of the country. Practically every corner of the country that you see them. Okay, you have a commercial lot, they'll be there. They'll be in the shopping mall, they'll be there. Okay, and things like that. I'm just waiting to see a little kiosk from DIY, a cute one, at the corner of the street, where you just got off the bus or you got off the train, you just buy something and then you go home. Those are the essential things. So I think to sum up everything is, we are very friendly, definitely. And the diverse culture as well helps out a lot. And there are different ways to different approach in different areas. So I think that's the sum up the whole country. Betty, you wanted to say something?
Yeah. Okay. So because I focus a lot on startup, I think I may be speaking from my experience. I think if you are running a startup in Malaysia, one of the things that you may want to look at is that if you, let's say, if you are developing a tech-based or a technology-based startups and all this, but of course naturally, you can you can actually, how should I say, if your technology is actually advanced enough, I think then by all means continue to run your business and all this. But I think realistically speaking, because Malaysia is really opened up very fast, and lots of countries are actually looking into entering into Malaysia. If let's say if you happen to be a startup, if the tech itself is actually can be better, you may actually want to look into one of the two things. One is joint venture, because like for example, we ourselves, we've been bringing a lot of companies overseas that are looking to expand into Malaysia. If you have startups or funded startups or were based in Malaysia, you can actually tap into this kind of opportunity, meaning that it can be a technology-based company from overseas looking to enter into Malaysia. So you position yourself that I'm actually open up myself to be the joint venture, meaning that the tech can be coming from overseas, but you being a local, you play the local game. So that means you have the tech from overseas, but we do a joint venture. And because I know the demographic, I know the kind of client, the kind of price point, everything, a joint venture will work very, very well. And this is already something that we have seen quite a lot, where the some of the startups, the tech that you have may be good, okay, but someone may actually comes along. You can take it as he or she can be your competitors, but because they are really new to the market, so working through people like us, consultant like us, we actually do a matchmaking, and ended up we actually did quite a fair bit of quite a good result. The local take the tech and do a joint venture, and then start running into a various market, and it scaled very, very fast. I think this is something that any of the startup may want to look into it. The other part of it is as of course merger and acquisitions. As we all know, globalization is already here. I mean, for the donkey years, there are also players who want to enter into a market, but they may not favor joint venture, but instead they actually favor more of like, is there any other parties that can be a direct or indirect competitors that we can actually come in and acquire? And also one of the advantage that a lot of startups are, or even the other businesses in Malaysia can take advantage of it, is that you can actually play around on the currency. Okay, like for example now, ringgit versus US dollar is really bad. Okay, it keep sliding down and everything. You can look at it on the negative side, or you can actually look at it on the positive side. It means that someone who wants to come in to want to acquire, they may actually opens up more opportunity for them. Why? Because some company, let's say for example, an overseas company may have like 50 million, okay, or 10 million ringgit they are looking to acquire. But because of the currency drop, it may make it easier for them to come in and actually acquire a company. And that itself may actually present an opportunity. I mean, going back to what I said earlier, is that yes, it would be great if you can sell higher, but on the flip side, it also means that because of people are playing on the currency, they actually see more opportunity to say, okay, I can actually come in and buy a few other companies at the same time. So if you happen to be a startup, I think this is actually an opportunity for you to look into a technology-based company who wants to come in to become a joint venture, or you can actually put yourself up in a position, strengthen your position to have someone to actually come and acquire you. That doesn't mean that that's the end of it, because you can actually scale much faster also. Thanks.
All right. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, actually, to be honest, for some of the really depending on the culture, because we work with like some different markets, right? As we can actually see that a lot of them actually prefer like entering into a new market as a distributor. Like for example, Taiwan. Okay, in Taiwan businesses, we actually see a lot of them, looking for like distributor instead of like opening up the branch themselves in the overseas market. So yeah, so this actually take a lot of time to actually sort of like find sort of like a match in Malaysia. I think this is something that different culture usually have their different kind of like way of like expanding business. All right, great sharing. Okay, so now we are at the third topic to talk about how do we actually determine like which location to sell in Malaysia. Okay, so usually these are a few factors that we actually take into account when it comes to like where to actually sell in Malaysia. So just wanted to hear from like Leong, Peter, maybe you can share a little bit like any sort of like interesting culture that we should think of if we are considering like different parts of Malaysia to actually expand to, and then what kind of business will actually strive better in whichever state it is. Yeah, maybe you can share a little bit interesting things regarding the locals.
Yeah. Maybe I'll go first. I think if you look at from all these aspects, whether it's financial, target market, culture, and stuff like that, positioning your product for a specific market is very important to start off, definitely. And what are you trying to really achieve? Whether you're tech or you're non-tech that's coming into Malaysia, how do you position that product? Usually, I will always ask this question: what are you trying to solve or figure out a problem statement that you're trying to solve. So if you have a problem statement that you know that there's a thing that you can resolve for this group of segment or people, culture, whatever that you're trying to do, is that you really need to come down to a state that you need to understand the behavior pattern. Okay, so if you mix between your problem statement and the behavior pattern, you will be able to now identify a product that you want to do, whether it's from a tech and so on and so forth. Now, of course, once you get into a target segment, again, there are so many variety in the country, looking from the city, looking from the suburban and things like that. The diversity of the financial capability of this consumer, if they're doing a B2C, of course, it will go very diverse in the country, particularly even if you go to the East Malaysia. To give you a bit of a flavor is, even the local companies here, I give an example, will be if you're competing in terms of providing broadband service to the country. So you have the local people, local telco, who will probably go after the high end of the customer, who are probably concentrated on the city area, and you probably lack of broadband services in the rural area and even at the jungle area and things like that. So again, the telco will probably go after in the city area, and then you got one or two of these satellite providers who's going to provide internet access into those areas. So to sell in Malaysia, you really need to know the problem statement that you're trying to resolve, where's the target market, and then how do you now build a strategy around it and go after the market. Okay, so I think there are so much of diversity, and that's the reason why I think Blackstorm is here to help anybody who wanted to look at the local market here, your tech that you're bringing in, or the type of services that you're bringing into the country. Yeah, that's the things that we can help and look at and so on and so forth. Yeah, you know, add on about Malaysia.
Yeah. Okay. Generally speaking, if the companies coming into Malaysia, normally they will start looking at the demographics of Malaysia. So the bulk of the people with buying power are in a couple of major cities in Malaysia, like for example, Klang Valley, Kuala Lumpur, Selangor. There is where the major population is residing, and their buying power is normally the highest. The other major cities will be like Penang, and of course Johor, which is very close to Singapore. And as a penetration strategy, depending if the business you're doing is actually B2C, well, this few cities will be, or few areas will be the first areas you will be looking at. Then you got to break down into the more detailed demographic. For example, what do you call this? What are their likes? What they like? What they don't like? You know, all this kind of stuff. Which I think the data is more readily available nowadays. Even nowadays with the Facebook demography and all these things, I think it's easier to actually get the details. And the just for your info, I think Malaysia has usually 40 million lines. The Malaysia population is like 32 million, but the number of telco lines is like 42 million. I'm not sure, Pete, is that correct? So that's a very high
penetration rate. Yeah, penetration rate is about 130%.
130%. That's crazily high. And if you talk about social media, you have easily like 90% penetration rate. That's fantastic. So I think with all this, the companies coming in, they can actually look into all this kind of data before they actually want to know where they want to set their foothold first. But generally speaking, they want to go to cities where they have all the major access to infra and all this thing to take a look at how it's like. And then from there, right, they can actually decide to actually go out to the more rural areas as they grow. It's not really advisable to actually come in and say, hey, I want to conquer the whole Malaysia one shot. I think that's a no-no. Don't be too greedy. Look at certain areas, test out the ground there first, and then from there, right, get to know more connectivity outside that particular city and scale from there. These are just some of my thoughts.
Right, if I can add on.
Yeah,
If
sure.
I can, sorry, if I
Yeah.
can add on I think market validation is very important, particularly for the startup. So when you come in, you really need to do a market validation of your product, particularly on a tech. I've seen several guys in financial services and also insurtech. These are pretty unknown to the consumer at this moment. You really got to do a lot of homework on validation, because you got 32 million population, 130 over percent mobile penetration at this moment. Mobile first engagement is definitely there. They are probably about 80 over 90% will use a mobile compared to a PC. So this kind of validation data is very, very important to get that, especially you want to come into Malaysia. Paddy, you want to say something?
No.
All right, no worries. Yeah, we can move on to the next question. I think that's where Paddy probably can actually advise more on the startup ecosystem. Since we actually have been running a lot of like programs also with our partner, Beyond4 in Malaysia. So okay, so this is a general view in terms of like the startup, stages, right? So just want to hear some thoughts, right? In terms of the startup ecosystem right now, what is the kind of like, situation now?
Yeah, thanks. Sorry, it was a fat finger pressed wrongly. Okay, regarding the startup, I think one of the fact that we cannot deny is that in terms of the currency, I'm still go back to currency. One of the biggest challenge where a lot of startup face in Malaysia is that the currency itself is actually not doing any big favor to them. So it has also resulted in quite a handful of startups. They actually run it in Malaysia first, but when it comes to the fundraising stage, they will probably leave the country and set up shop outside of the country. Singapore is one of those places, and in fact, we started to see quite a fair bit of them in Thailand also, and also even Malaysia. Even Taiwan, Thailand and Taiwan. I think one of the very interesting thing that is that because of this, it also created opportunity for Malaysia startups to go globalize. Why? Case in point, some of the companies that we actually work with, they probably join some accelerator program like Magic, and then eventually, they don't raise funds in Malaysia. They actually go out of the country, like land in Singapore, Taiwan, Thailand, all this, to raise the money. But interestingly is that after they raise the money, they actually bring the money back into Malaysia. Okay, few reasons. The market is actually in Malaysia, but the fundraising is actually outside. And when they bring the money back to Malaysia, simply means that they continue to hire Malaysians, continue to hire developers in the country itself, and they actually use the resources there. So this also created some sort of globalizations, meaning that folks actually leave the country, go set up shop outside and raise funds. Meaning because of the fund, the way funds is being raised, can be very different in different countries. My understanding is that from feedback from a lot of startups is that they one of the biggest reason or push factors for them is not to raise in Malaysia is the ecosystem is still in its infant stage, and a lot of investors who are very new to this opportunity, they probably see as it may actually be more worthwhile for me to invest in the property than to invest in the startup, because the risk appetite are very different. In the startup, I think we all know it's a do or die situation. You put in the money, if the thing fly. If the thing doesn't fly, you can probably get zero. So that's why a lot of investors are still very much in the traditional space, and they rather go into something that's a bit more tangible, that I can see. If I invest in the property, I can get yields. If I invest in a commercial building, I can get rent. That kind of stuff. So I think at the end of the day, as a startup, you may want to look into setting up in Malaysia, take advantage of the the situations in Malaysia, as both Leong and Peter mentioned, the people, the hiring, the cultures, and everything. But at the same time, you do not necessarily have to sell only in Malaysia. I think one of the startups that I advise is that the solution is actually pretty good. Get themselves ready. It is actually a CTO as a service. The offer is actually very good. But if you were to sell it in Malaysia, yes, nothing wrong. But as what Leong mentioned, you can't conquer the whole Malaysia at one time. But because of the pandemic, but because of Zoom, folks are actually very willing to take advice through a Zoom. Because just imagine if you're based in KL, someone in Penang who wants to have your advice, no, it's impossible for you to drive up and down 4 hours one way, 4 hours the other way, just to get 1-2 hours of consultations. But I just imagine if you have the same service, you have the same quality, and you go to countries like, sell it to China, sell it to US, sell it to, or even to next door, Singapore, you are going to provide exactly the same quality of service. You can probably get 3 times to 6 times of your current currency. So that can be one way of being local, but yet serving the global market. Thanks.
All right, thanks for the sharing. Okay, so we'll run to the next question. So which market are actually rising in Malaysia? So in terms of the market trend, in the next few slides, I'm just sharing some like facts, some figures and facts, right? Feel free to talk about in general, what are the markets that are rising in Malaysia in your opinion? Yeah. So anyway, for the attendees, if you have any question, feel free to actually ask in the chat box and we'll address that. Okay. So anyone want to actually give some, feedback regarding, the market trends that we should actually look at, in Malaysia, especially. Leong?
Yeah. Okay. Basically, I think right now, a lot of the investments in Malaysia, like those investment house, the mutual funds and all, they are putting a lot of money into the tech space because there is a high growth area, and of course now the buzzword is actually ESG. So they in the next, I think by 2030, Malaysia is trying to very much drive down the go green basically, and by 2050 they want to go carbon free. So basically Malaysia has about, I think, easily 900 over public listed companies. And in terms of the numbers of registered companies in Malaysia, meaning to say that they are limited by shares, private limited, and so forth, not including those hawkers and all those things, easily there's around 1 million, slightly more than 1 million of this kind of companies. But the bulk of it, the government is trying to drive this digitization and all these things. A lot of money is actually being poured into this area because of the high growth thing. Of course, the other sector is the FSI law. And then you have all these digital banks and all these things coming in, and all the new techs are coming in. Then you have, of course, the manufacturing sector, which are quite resilient. But due to the supply chain disruption, all those, there's a lot of effect in this area. But I think in terms of the investments in the tech sectors, you have like, I think in the slide here, you have life sciences, education, agriculture, energy, and all this. It has to be disruptive in nature. It cannot be like all kind of tech, improving the efficiency. It has to be something very different if you want to really drive it forward to see traction. It cannot be a Me Too kind of thing. Like for example, there's just too many rider apps out there. Just to share recently, I think end of last year, I had a chat with quite a senior person in the Malaysian Selangor state government. We were talking about looking at areas of collaboration. He said, please don't propose another rider app. We don't want to have a rider nation. Which I totally agree. We have, like, I think easily more than 500,000 of riders in Malaysia. Say, why don't you think about areas where you can actually bring in more foreign money coming back into Malaysia, but the Malaysians actually doing the work for the businesses outside Malaysia. I think I've shared this with Jaslyn before. It generally revolves around what you call it, remote working, where Malaysians can actually provide their services, to people in Southeast Asia. And recently also, I have an opportunity to speak to companies outside Malaysia, like the likes of Taiwan and all, where they want to actually engage Malaysian tech programmers and all. Reason being, the Malaysian ringgit is quite weak right now. So when you do the exchange, right, it's still very reasonable on the rates, because this kind of companies, they're probably serving clients in US or in Europe, where they actually pay in US dollars, in euros and all. So when they take what they call it, the programmers from Malaysia, and then when they charge their client, the margins are still pretty good. So I believe that with the weak ringgit, Malaysia is still very much in the position to actually get this kind of businesses. It's just that we need to basically train up our local talents and all those. And of course, if possible, bring back a lot of those good talents. I think this one can be done through certain programs where, like I mentioned, if you can actually get them businesses or jobs that pays them well while they're actually based in Malaysia, I think they're comfortable in Malaysia. These are just some thoughts.
So we are running out of time. Maybe you can hear one more thoughts on, like, trend for any one of you. Yeah.
Maybe I just take a follow through what Leon just said about digital banking. So I think the scene is really hotting up. Already in Malaysia, already announced 5 of the digital bank license in Malaysia. They will have about close to 12 months to launch their product into the marketplace. So it's an incredible time that these guys are really talking to everybody. Not only the 5 new license holder, but also the traditional bank. There's about, if I'm not mistaken, I think there's about 16 banks at this moment. So if you add up that together, there's probably about 20, 21 guys out there. Now, the focus is 12 months from now, the competition, what is it going to be? A lot of help is needed, I can tell you. A lot of tech that they're looking for, okay? I have to be, at this moment, right in the middle with these guys, and every other day they want to speak about ideas, they want to speak about tech. Tech is one portion of the business. The customer experience is another part of the business. You have the tech, you really need to understand what are you delivering. The consumer of the 32 million needs to buy these services. And you have a captive audience of a very high 90% of the population who have a bank account in Malaysia. So it is really a very different ballgame here, okay, for these guys. So huge opportunity, tech guys, financial services guys. These are very exciting times in the next 12 months, but you really need to start now. Okay, so they also got me very excited. Keep on talking about what they want to do and things like that. They keep on asking for ideas all the time. Okay, back to you, Jacqueline.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing. Okay.
Just to add to, sorry.
Go ahead.
Just to add to what Peter has to say. In Malaysia, right, the FSI industry, that means the financial services industry, they are actually one of the biggest spender for tech in Malaysia in terms of the hardware and software solutionings. Basically, a lot of the IT companies are basically serving them right now, fighting for their pie. And even during the MCO, they're still spending like crazy.
Talking about spending, right? So I actually have a question, 3 Ps. Okay, let me show what are the 3 Ps. Product, pricing, and place. So I think one question that we always hear, right, in terms of like, when I come in, enter a new market, I want to talk about product, what kind of offering should we have, what kind of structure should it be, right? So maybe you can have some thoughts like, in terms of like offering in like Malaysia, right? What is the usual kind of like, structure that is like very popular, and then which one should be sort of like avoided because of, situation, probably culture or whatsoever. So yeah, maybe you can hear some thoughts. So anyway, just a reminder, if you have any question, please write at the chat box. We'll move into like the Q&A session after this.
Let me just come in on this. I think one of the things that I realized 2 years ago before the pandemic, and 2 years later after the pandemic, as we re-enter back into Malaysia, I realized one thing. In terms of the pricing mechanisms, it's a bit different. Interestingly, is that a lot of Malaysians, whether is it the customers or consumers, enterprise or this, I think price comparison is sort of becomes more intensive. Previously was probably not so much because there are options and everything, but now it's because of it seems that a lot of folks are actually comparing it and trying to get, if possible, try to get the lowest pricing. I think this is also one of the very interesting situations. perhaps people are just recovering it from this pandemic. But also at the same time, you got your Russia-Ukraine war going around, inflation goes up, everything. I think somehow the pricing becomes a very, very sensitive positioning that you want to take. And if any of the companies that I feel that when you want to enter into Malaysian markets, I think first and foremost you have to understand that price is a sensitive topic, and but it is also important to raise it upfront, so that at the same time you don't create any misunderstanding or you don't create any miscommunication. Because one of the mistakes that a lot of companies make, a lot of foreign companies tend to make, is that when they enter, they will take it as we charge 10,000 US dollar. Let me convert it literally. I think you will probably frighten a lot of people. My take here is that if you are planning to use an overseas pricing, go to a local market like Malaysia, and then expect the market to absorb it. I think that's not possible. But however, if you are looking at the cost of goods are actually based in Malaysia and then sell in Malaysia, and then the profit that you make is being spent in Malaysia, the whole entire dynamics will be very different. So I think pricing wise is something that we'll probably have to look into this a bit more traditional. Because sometimes it's not about coming to a market that you have to price yourself the lowest. I think it's more of like understanding the conditions, what kind of pricing can be absorbed by either the top few percentage, or are you targeting the mid tier, or even are you targeting at a slightly on the low cost positioning. Thanks.
All right, thanks for sharing. Okay, any question from the audience regarding the first few pointers that we had? Okay. All right. Okay, so if you have no other question, Peter, Leong, any add-ons for this particular topic?
Yeah, Pete, you want to go ahead?
I wanted to touch maybe a bit of pricing. Yes, the country is very very sensitive to pricing. I think because we kind of like a bit of knowledge, you will know what kind of pricing is going to be, not only within Malaysia, within overseas as well. Remember, there is a lot of competition within. There are fantastic and great technology companies in Malaysia as well. They will give you a run for the money, definitely. Now, I can't speak for content. Content could be, there will be countries is what more superior and things like that. Because, however, those things could be something that not most of these tech guys or companies are focusing. But you talk about F&B, you talk about retail, manufacturing, guys, this is the competition. The Malaysian will give you a run for your money, definitely. Okay, and we are known to be able to produce quality stuff, particularly in the F&B sector for franchising, food sector and things like that. They'll give you a run for your money, definitely. Any country, anytime. So those are the things. Not only because we price it cheap, it's because I think the guys are very efficient. I've seen it. I've seen a lot of partners who I talked to. Very interestingly, for the last couple of weeks, we've been talking to a guy, Leon would know, that he actually brings product out of Malaysia into the Hong Kong market and the China market. So you can imagine a Malaysian company getting into there, and if he fits well, you can imagine how great the business is for these guys. Okay, they will be able to compete even with the China manufacturing. I'm very sure the way that it's going. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Just to share, I wouldn't say one price can fit everything. Because the businesses in Malaysia is quite diverse, but depending on what kind of products you want to market here. I'll just give an example, simple example. If you talk about F&B, I think a couple of years back, you know, the bubble tea trend, like the craze that came into Malaysia. I mean, it's crazy expensive compared to the local, you know, in Chinese, they call it lai cha, all this. But if you target the right community, right, like for example, the millennials, Gen Z, paying for this kind of thing to them is like no problem. And then next you have all those hot pot trend that came in. So you have youngsters paying like 60, 70 bucks per head. Right? It's like no pain to them, you know. So it depends on what kind of demography you're going after. You see. Okay, another case in point will be we look at cars. You know, Malaysian cars has been known to be one of the most expensive in the region. I don't compare to Singapore, you know, but if you compare to like Thailand and all those other places, right, per capita income is like pretty high. You see. But you still you still get all these motor vehicle companies still doing business in Malaysia, and they're still surviving, you know. So then you have even Tesla coming in into Malaysia, all those high-tech companies. Then you have like the likes of Geely buying over Proton. If Malaysia is not a good place to do business because of the population, they think that it's not big enough. You know, China is so big, but you have Geely coming into Malaysia to do this business, taking over a money-losing company and then turn it around. So that's really classic. So it depends on which sector you're going into. What kind of, I think here you have product pricing place, right? I think people is also another very, very important factor in the equation. It is not mentioned here. So what kind of business you want to do here? I think that is very, very important. With this, I pass it back to Jocelyn. Thank you.
All right, thanks for sharing. Okay, so basically these are some of the tips that we actually prepare, but I won't go through like today, you know, during this webinar itself, but we will share over this particular deck, you know, via email, okay, if you're actually registered with us. Okay, so some of the standard procedure when you actually start up a company in Malaysia. And then, of course, the checklist on how do we actually scale businesses in Malaysia in 100 days. Okay, so if you are interested to actually find out more about how we actually help companies to actually scale in Malaysia in 100 days, where we actually usually look at 3 different P's. It's a different P from the previous one: the people, product, and processes. So these are some of the questions that usually we will address, right? Why is it important is because like definitely like we actually mentioned, you know, earlier, like people that you actually know, partners that you work with is very, very important. And then that is actually maybe the sort of like key to actually help you to reduce a lot of time as well as cost, right, to enter a new market like Malaysia. Okay, so some of the processes, like how do you actually operate in Malaysia, any gaps you need to look after. And then lastly, of course, like your product. Definitely one single product cannot tackle everything, right? So you have to actually localize, but at the same time also retain the globalized, you know, kind of like, you know, favor from where you are coming from, because, you know, if it's a proven product, definitely is something that you have to actually retain, but how do you actually localize it? Okay, so these are the usual few questions that we will actually ask. Okay, so just to recap, Blackstone Consulting is a Singapore-based business scaling company. We actually have like offices in these 4 countries, and then covering some of the countries below, as you can see. Okay, so some of the offerings that we actually offer, like from, you know, providing hybrid kind of services. What do we mean by hybrid? Would be, you know, in terms of like, you know, consultancy, providing consultancy for you. We can actually do it online, while at the same time, what we are actually, what sets us aside different from other consultancy firms is we actually help in guiding you on, and also help you to actually implement in the local market in the way that, you know, facilitating with partners here and there. Okay, so 3 main topics, usually market entry, skilling, as well as, you know, corporate restructuring. But one thing for sure, of course, like, you know, recently we actually see a lot of like companies looking into corporate innovation, which is very important. And this is something that we have been doing in Malaysia too, right? Together with our team. Okay, so we have come to the end. If you actually would like to find out more, you can actually email us, or you can actually follow our Facebook, LinkedIn, as well as Medium, where we will share some of the events that we actually have and some, you know, thoughts from us. All right, I will leave this slide over here. Thank you very much, like, you know, Leon, Peter, and Paddy, you know, for, you know, contributing and chipping in some of the thoughts, you know, when it comes to like Malaysian market. So very interesting, and I actually enjoyed the whole discussion with everyone today. All right, thanks attendee from attending this event. So if you have any question, also feel free to email us. We can actually address that over the email too.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
very
Thank
much.
you. Bye.
Thank you, Paddy.
Good night.
Thank you, Peter. Thanks, everyone.
Night.
Have a good evening.